What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. Talk about some very important levels to be watching for, and how the charts are looking in my personal opinion. But before I break the details information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. Deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them, and offer ends in just 8 days. Anyways, for Tesla, you guys can see how these levels have been unfolding so far. Looking at the way Tesla was moving, this thing gapped down pretty hard, coming all the way down to this 140 support. We got a little dip here before they got ready for this nice push. And then during the push, Tesla went to about 144 a share. I went a little bit higher than that before it ended up coming back down, and now we're just continuing to trade within this range. So if anything, I just want to call out some weakness on Tesla stock because we're just barely holding this 140 support. We have to see how well Tesla kind of holds from here. It might just remain within this range for the majority of the day. I think that's most likely what's going to happen. But I am seeing a little bit of weakness in the share price relative to the market and relative to what we've seen historically. And we're going to be watching this 140 support as very, very important support for Tesla. If we lose this 140 area, there's a risk of it coming down to the 138. Specifically, 138.25 is one support that's historical for Tesla, but also the low of the day was around this 138.8 area. So there's two levels in the 138s to be watching for. If you lose that, watch the 136s, followed by the 135s. Then the 133 is going to be the next supports to be watching for if we end up dipping lower. Our resistance is currently at this 20 EMA. So we have some resistance at 141.5, then this 142 area. If that breaks, we could go up to 144. And then if that breaks, we have 146. So very, very tight levels on Tesla. I know that it's very, very bound right now within this range. And the levels are tight because right now the market's in a critical place, just waiting for some more data, waiting for earnings and such. And the market's very tight. That's part of why Tesla's kind of in this tight range. So those levels are not that insane right now. You can see it just moved a couple of points back and forth. But right now, I'm seeing a little bit of weakness on the chart. We're just barely holding this 140 support. That is going to be very, very pivotal for Tesla moving forward. So we'll see how well it does. But if we end up losing this, there is going to be that risk of downside. So just be very careful on Tesla. One more warning about Tesla is the fact that premiums are very expensive right now as implied volatility is high. This is what normally happens approaching earnings. So I'm expecting a big IV crush after earnings. So that's something worth noting. Let me just also call out SPY. So SPY had this range over here, very, very important range. I just wanted to mention that I can actually draw out another trend line just to show you guys this right here. So SPY was going back and forth between support and resistance. We had 498 as resistance. We had support at 497. And what's very interesting is the fact that we have this gap on SPY. We have this nice little gap over here. So there's this gap to fill all the way down at 494. We were just trading in this range, and then we kind of broke structure right here. We got a back test, now we're starting to reject right here. So there's a risk of this dipping a little bit lower. Could we come all the way down to fill the gap? That's actually a little tricky. Depends on if we hold 496 or not. If we lose that, then yes, I do see a risk of it dropping a lot lower, all the way down to about 494 again. But that depends on if we hold up. SPY was trying to bounce. We were trying to get a bounce in the market, but the bounce has failed so far. So it hasn't really kind of like established a change in its structure. So the market's still kind of weak. I think that's a little bit premature and a little bit early to get a bigger bounce. And I'm seeing some weakness on the charts. I'm going to be 100% honest with everyone. So, like I said, guys, we got this little rejection off this back test. We're showing some signs of weakness. We're going to be watching that 496 support. Then we have this big gap over here. So just be careful. We could dip to fill that gap. Same thing on the QQQ. Very similar setup. Now, this is basically a push to trigger the stop over here. So they were trying to trigger this high, as we saw a lot of stops at 418 on the QQQ. That's why we got this little push. This was a fake out move. And then the QQQ got a nice rejection, very similar to the double top on SPY. So we got a little back test right over here, almost exactly at where this previous support was. This is a dictionary definition of a back test. We had this support where my cursor is right here. And then this was our rejection. So now we're coming back down. We have this gap to fill right here on the QQQ. We could easily fill this gap if we continue to hold below 415. So the QQQ is showing some weakness. Nvda is doing something very similar. We got this nice little push up to our resistance. We had 795 as resistance. Then we have 805 above that. Got a little rejection. Our support is currently at 767, around that range, very close to that area. As you could see, We have this gap to fill on Nvidia. We haven't fully filled the gap at 760, and we kind of rejected off our 20 EMA, very close to this. So I do see a possibility of this actually retracing a bit more. If we lose 767, look for that gap fill. There is a little bit of weakness on the chart, so just be careful. It's not as weak as other stocks out there, such as like the QQQ and the others, but I am seeing some weakness that's still worth noting. Apple has a bearish looking setup because we have a double top like structure right here. See, it looks like a giant M, right? A big M is forming. If we lose this support right here at this 165 area, we're going to be looking for this gap fill, or at least most of it should get filled. Apple is also showing weakness. This is dragging the market down a little lower. So it's not the best of signs so far. Another thing is a lot of stocks out there, like big tech, are showing weakness. If you look at Coinbase, we're going to start with this before I talk about some big tech out there. We had this 126 resistance. This is actually the same resistance right over here. Got a nice little rejection off this. It pushed. I was calling out a push on the QQQ and it kind of rejected. So now we're watching 219. If we lose that, watch 217. If that fills us, we have 214 as a tight level, followed by this gap fill at 209. So I'm seeing some weakness on Coinbase. This could dip a little bit more in my personal opinion. Then we also have Amazon, right? It attempted to break out, tried to, and it failed. We got a big rejection. There's a gap to fill all the way down here at 173.8. So I see potential for downside on Amazon. On Meta, I'm also seeing some weakness on Meta. Meta kind of gapped up and then it ended up falling. This is looking a little bit weak right now. We're going to be watching this support. We're actually below the support we had on Friday. So we could approach like lower levels into the low 470s. So just be careful. Meta is also showing some weakness. Anyways, guys, that is it for the video, at least for the time being. Market is still not ready for a big bounce yet. I'm still seeing weakness on the charts, especially for SPY and the QQQ. My job here is just to kind of heed. I want you guys to heed my warnings. Excuse me. I want to give you guys warnings. I want you guys to heed them. I want you guys to be very prepared for what's about to come. Tesla is looking a little bit lackluster, barely holding this 140 support. There is a risk of more downside, so just be careful and be very mindful of that. All right. So with that being said, make sure you watch the supports I called out. 138 is coming next. If we fail to hold 140, then we also have 136 to 135. So we'll see how Tesla does. We'll be very, very patient as day traders, investors out there, and just know that the stock is looking weak amidst all the bad news I talked about in my earlier video. All right, so that's going to be a very, very quick intraday update on the markets. I'll be back around, I think it's going to be around close to between 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to be gone for a few hours, but then once I'm back, I'll talk more about how the market's looking. All right, thank you for listening. Watch your levels, and peace out.